Hey everybody, the purpose of today's video is I want to try to answer this question: was Edgar Cayce a Christian prophet? There have been those out there who have said that he was, so I want to get into this and we can discover if that's true or not. Now, for those who aren't familiar with me and my testimony, I was brought up in a Christian home, but in my early adulthood I fell away from the church and got into New Age theology for a few years. It began because I was dealing with sleep paralysis. I was also experiencing what I considered to be demonic manifestations and attacks. I didn't know anything about spiritual warfare and had no idea how to solve this problem. So I confided in a friend about my problem, and she handed me a book about astral projection. Before that time, I'd never heard of such a thing. Her idea was that I could use astral projection, which is the process of meditating in order to leave your own physical body. Her idea was that I could use that to escape the attacks, and at the time I felt it was worth a shot. So I practiced and meditated, even becoming a vegetarian, which is something that the book suggested, for about 6 months before it actually happened. Now this was when I discovered that yes, astral projection is fully real, not just a dream, hallucination, or product of imagination. At the time, once I became better at it, I decided to test it. I would use this to go into places that I'd never been before, then later visit those places to see if the projections were accurate, and they were every time. Now I quickly found out that there would be no way this would help, that this could help me with my sleep paralysis or demonic attack problem. The type of meditation needed would be impossible under those types of strenuous conditions. And in fact, there were times when meditation would spur on sleep paralysis and subsequent demonic manifestations. But regardless, at the time I was already hooked. I didn't care, and for me it was for me at the time in that mindset it was worth it. Now by this time I was becoming more and more entrenched in New Age theology. One of my favorite people at the time to read about was Edgar Cayce. Stories of him falling asleep on a Bible as a child and waking up with full recall of Scripture absolutely fascinated me. Even the depiction of his supposed self-sacrifice, that he was continuing to use his gifts for the benefit of others until it eventually killed him, that spoke to me. Now at that time I was thinking, now here's a good man and an example of what the world needs more of. It was easy for me to justify Cayce's New Age theology by believing stuff that I saw on the internet about him being a Christian and stuff I read in books, and it was easier for me to believe that, and that everything else he was teaching was just an extension of it somehow. Now, of course, that was during a time when I wasn't taking the Bible very seriously, and I was actually going out of my way to ignore all of the inconsistencies between Edgar Cayce and the Bible. A couple years after my first introduction to Edgar Cayce, I ended up renouncing everything New Age. The details of the reasons behind that decision are really lengthy and really beyond the purposes of this video. But if you do wish to know more, you can check out what I shared during an interview with my good friend Richard Shaw, who's producer of the Torah Codes and the Watchers series, in the linked video in the description of this video, or you can subscribe to my channel. You can find it in my channel. It's one of the Sharpening Report episodes with Richard Shaw on Torah Codes and Ancient Alien Technologies. So you can check that out if you want the whole story. And I even have the topics within that interview, because it's almost 3 hours long. I have it time-stamped, so you can just click on that one thing and it'll take you there. Or if you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you right to that part in the interview. Now, the short version of the story is while I was astral projecting, I came across a group of spiritual beings who at the time seemed friendly. They told me that they would help me leave my body if I asked them to. The next time I tried to astral project, I couldn't. However, I decided not to ask the entities for help. There was just something about it that I was uncomfortable with. Well, shortly after that, our home came under a spiritual attack that I didn't think was even possible outside of horror movies. Basically, these entities were upset that I didn't invite them in, so to speak, so they were trying to force their way in. This put me on a path to getting back to the Bible, rededicating my life to Christ, learning about spiritual warfare, and using the authority in the name of Jesus to force these things out. And it worked. Not only did it solve that problem, but it also ended up completely solving my issue with sleep paralysis and demonic manifestations. So, because of Jesus Christ, I no longer have to live in fear of those things. This new spiritual transformation caused me to look at New Age theology through a more truthful lens. Suddenly I felt awake and I couldn't believe the types of things that I had been involved with. Looking at Edgar Cayce through a biblical lens was especially eye-opening. Once I realized what a Christian actually is, any belief that I had that Edgar Cayce was a true follower of Christ was dispelled. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying Edgar Cayce wasn't saved. Besides God, no one can know that. For all anyone knows, he could have repented at any point in his life. He could have accepted Jesus just before he died. No one knows. However, being saved and being a follower of Christ are a bit different. Accepting Jesus as your Savior is the first initial step towards relationship with God. Actively cultivating that relationship is that's what it means to be a follower of Christ. Edgar Cayce might have accepted Jesus at some point. I don't know. He might be in heaven right now for all I know. We really have no way of knowing. However, we do have the information available to deduce, based on biblical premises, if he was a true follower of Christ or not. One of the biggest evidences we can look at are his prophecies. This is actually what spurred on this video. A while ago, I posted a video about one of Edgar Cayce's prophecies involving Russia and World War III. And I have that video linked in the description below, too, if you want to check that out. Or you can just look it up on YouTube. It's called Edgar Cayce's demonic prophecy of Russia and World War III. Now, in the video, I put forth the possibility that Edgar Cayce was under a demonic influence rather than godly influences. This wasn't an attempt to insult Cayce or anything like that, or anybody who follows him. It was only to provide another answer that I believe is more accurate. In the comments, one of the things that was repeated the most by people was the claim that Edgar Cayce was actually a Christian. I felt it would be good to examine that claim and see if it holds up biblically. In Jesus' own words, Matthew 7:15-20 reads, "Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them." So Jesus tells us that we can know someone, specifically false prophets, by their fruits. What have they produced? What's their cause or motivation of their actions? Did they win people to the Lord, or did they lead them astray? Now, Edgar Cayce is not known for bringing people to salvation through Jesus Christ. In fact, Cayce is most known for his large number of prophecies. Now, specific numbers vary on just how many prophecies and other writings there are of Cayce's, but they're usually counted as somewhere around 20,000. He also has a vast array of teachings, including things about astral travel, the Akashic records, reincarnation, things like that. And here is actually quoted a quote from one source of interpretation of Cayce's teachings. And this comes from, actually I have the website listed in the article below. If you go to the article, you can find all the sources that I cite here. So the quote goes, and this is from a New Age source, and this is typical of what people who subscribe to New Age theology believe, and I can't say all of them believe that because not all of them do, but this is generally a good idea of some of the things that some of the things they believe. So the quote says, Cayce predicted that the so-called Battle of Armageddon, described symbolically in the Bible, would begin in 1999. Cayce foresaw that this battle would not be a war fought on earth. Rather, it would be a spiritual struggle between the higher forces of light and the lower forces of darkness for 1,000 years of earth time. The reason for this struggle is to prevent souls from lower afterlife realms from reincarnating to earth. By preventing souls from the lower afterlife realms from reincarnating to earth, only enlightened souls will be permitted to reincarnate. The result will be 1,000 years of building a world of peace and enlightenment. After 1,000 years, souls from lower afterlife realms will be permitted once again to reincarnate to earth. By this time, the so-called kingdom of heaven will have been established on earth. Now, this type of teaching is common in New Age theology, and I remember it quite well. But we can see how New Age theology and Edgar Cayce's teachings are incompatible with the Bible. You can't marry the two. In this example, the first thing to point out is that the Battle of Armageddon did not begin in 1999. Also, there is nothing in the scriptures to signify this is meant to be understood as symbolic or even solely spiritual. The specific text that this is referring to, it's Revelation 16 through 21. That reads, and he gathered them together in a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, It is done. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not seen since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake, and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven. Every stone was about the weight of a talent, and men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. Now, we have very literal language used here. There's talk of angels, of course, but this is not an event that is happening just solely in heaven or another spiritual location. We read about an earthly place called Armageddon in the Hebrew language. There's a physical earthquake, an earthly city, earthly islands, earthly mountains, earthly men, and hail falling on the earth. These are all physical and literal things mentioned throughout this text. So if Cayce thought that this battle would not be on earth, we have a choice to make. Are we going to believe Edgar Cayce or the Bible? Either the Bible contains the truth or it doesn't. Biblical teachings compared against Edgar Cayce's teachings offer no middle ground nor compromise. So you can't say that Edgar Cayce's teachings are Christian and then look at the Bible and try to read there's just no room for compromise there. It's one or the other. Another example, reincarnation. That's a big belief that was taught by Cayce and continues on through more modern New Age sources. But we read in Hebrews 9:27, it says, "And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment." So again, we have a choice. Are we going to believe Cayce or the Bible? The Bible teaches once you die, you're sealed in your eternal choice. Either you have accepted Jesus or you've rejected him. You have either followed God or you haven't. Cayce taught reincarnation. Now these two beliefs, they can't go hand in hand without compromising one or the other. If you're going to take the truth of the Bible, what the Bible is actually teaching, and what Edgar Cayce was actually teaching, they're not compatible. So it's one or the other. Then the question comes up, well, did Edgar Cayce have prophecies that turned out to be true? Yes, actually he did. In fact, he's regarded as one of the greatest worldly prophets because based on certain estimations, and I don't know how accurate these are, but based on the highest estimations that are out there, he's supposed to have had over an 80% accuracy. Now, does that mean he was a Christian? No. Not that it doesn't. The Bible teaches that anything less than 100% accuracy in the realm of prophecy is unacceptable. In fact, in the ancient days of Israel, just one false prophecy was enough to earn a death sentence. Now, this is because any prophecy of God will come to pass exactly as it was prophesied. However, a prophecy by any other source will never be able to have that kind of accuracy. So this is how we can tell if a prophet is representing God or not. Yahweh, the God of the Bible, takes prophecy very seriously, and Jesus consistently warned against false prophets, and the Old Testament gives us the method to tell if a prophet is true or false. Deuteronomy 18:19 through 22 reads, "And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And if thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord hath not spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken, but the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously. Thou shalt not be afraid of him." So therefore, we once again have a contradiction between the Bible and Edgar Cayce. So which do we trust? The Bible holds up to its own teaching by providing 100% prophetic accuracy rating. The Bible's been held up to scrutiny for millennia, yet it's never been disproved. And the great thing about all this is it should be incredibly easy to disprove the Bible if it weren't true. All one would have to do is find one prophecy that didn't come to pass when and how God said it would. Of course, many have tried, all have failed. Now, I don't say those things to be insensitive or rude. I completely understand the allure of New Age. However, once I was out of it and started seeing things clearly myself, I realized the reality behind all the things I was inherently interested in was actually found in the Bible. Now, personally, I love prophecy. I really do. I love the idea that I have a book at my disposal that consistently tells the future before it happens. Of course, the world will claim that that's not true, but also offers no real evidence to back up that claim. Again, if the Bible weren't true, it should be really easy to disprove. Now, if you want more information on Bible prophecies and some other materials on how you can test the Bible yourself, you can go to the description below. There's a link to an interview that I did with Dr. Ken Johnson. It's called Bible Prophecies Revealed, and he's an expert in these matters. He's written a couple of books. But you can check that out. That'll give you a lot more information and also direct you to more materials. Now, as I stated before, the purpose of this video, it's not to insult Edgar Cayce or to show disrespect to any person. I don't hate or hold anything against Cayce personally. My belief is he was more of a victim, if anything else. He was a deceived person who believed he was doing good and right by the world, but who the forces of darkness were using towards their own ends. Personally, I see people like Edgar Cayce as prisoners of war rather than the enemy. And that's something that I can relate to as well. I was blinded by New Age theology and all these things, but I was being deceived too. So I don't hold anything against anybody who's in that situation. But the truth, the biblical truth, is that our true enemy, it's not each other. It's not person against person. In essence, people aren't really the problem. Ephesians 6:12 tells us that the true enemy is a spiritual one. And it reads, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Those are all spiritual things. Those are all spiritual forces. That's our true enemy. Fallen angels and demons. Those are our true enemy. They are the ones who are sowing discord amongst humanity. They're the true promulgators of deception. Now, this doesn't let us off the hook either. We all have a personal responsibility to find the truth and share it with others through God's lead. So that's my hope here. Now, my main reason for this study is the hope that there might be people out there who are beginning to question New Age and want more information. This isn't an attempt to prove myself right or slam people who subscribe to New Age beliefs. If you're into New Age theology yourself, I don't hate you. I don't blame you. I don't judge you at all. I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I did. Instead, my only concern is to provide you with evidence, with the evidence of truth, and hope that you'll consider it seriously and logically. Now, for more information, go to the description below. There's a really good article that I found at the website Christian Answers for thenewage.org, and it's an article on Edgar Cayce and his struggle with Christianity, his struggle with New Age theology in the Bible. He was one that was attempting to marry the two, and I think as we've discovered, hopefully through this video, it's just not a good idea. It's not a truthful way to handle these two competing theories or ideas or belief systems. It's one or the other. So that's the video. I hope that helps. For more information, you can go to sharpeningreport.com and find more of my articles, videos, all that. You can subscribe to me. If you're viewing this on YouTube, there's a subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. And if you're not listening or watching this on YouTube, you can just go to youtube.com/JoshPeckDisclosure and subscribe to me there. Anyway, so I hope that has helped, and thank you for watching. As always, take care, and God bless.